It's really starting now. The Central Bank of Saudi Arabia is buying Bitcoin, or rather, has already done so. This has now been made public. The whole thing happened through MicroStrategy, and just days and weeks ago, people were laughing when I said that nation-states are coming. When I shared various quotes here from CZAD, from Ospels, from Bitwise, and different asset managers, all of whom said there is demand happening in the background. People want to get into Bitcoin now. The major nations are all getting involved, and now we're seeing exactly that play out. The 13F filings have been published, and Saudi Arabia is buying significant shares of Bitcoin, or rather, MicroStrategy. I've always said that the sheiks, the Saudis, the people here in the Middle East and so on, are perfectly positioned to buy Bitcoin and make a big Bitcoin move. But we also have Wall Street legend Tom Lee, who is now talking about a $1.5 million Bitcoin price. He's never made such a bullish statement before, and he says Bitcoin will catch up to gold. Anthony Scaramucci confirms the evidence. He confirms it again and also says that Bitcoin will catch up to gold. Yesterday, or at some point, I also mentioned the report from JP Morgan, who also say that Bitcoin will surpass gold. So guys, you absolutely have to smash the like button now. What's happening right now is extremely bullish. Also, make sure to subscribe so you're always in the know before everyone else. All those banana heads out there, they won't even notice what's going on. I was the first to say it here, or right at the beginning, hey, there are Bitcoin purchases happening in the background. And just so you believe me that I'm super bullish, I'll show you my boxer shorts. They look pretty normal here. But if you take a closer look and turn them around, you can clearly see there's a huge hole in them. And that's the important thing you need to take away from this. Anyone who still has boxer shorts without holes in them just isn't bullish enough. Hit me with a double like if you've got holes in your boxers too. Here's the proof of boxer shorts again. And now let's check out what the Saudi Arabia just released. There was that big conference where Larry Fink, Donald Trump, and so on were all in Saudi Arabia. And like I said, this whole thing is really surprising for a lot of people. But for people who are subscribed to this channel, it's not surprising at all. We can see it here now. Saudi Arabia's central bank just revealed that it's buying MicroStrategy. Saudi Arabia is buying Bitcoin here. So you're buying Bitcoin here through the wrapper MicroStrategy. In other words, they're not holding Bitcoin directly, but it's now coming out that they're buying Bitcoin via MicroStrategy. However, there were also some sources that additionally claimed that they also have Bitcoin in self-custody, meaning they're doing both, holding through MicroStrategy and also holding Bitcoin in self-custody. That's also what I always recommend. I'll also put a link below for the TREZOR Trust hardware wallet. Always move your Bitcoin to a hardware wallet. Use the code BitcoinHotel for a discount, but make sure to enter it in lowercase. But regarding the Bitcoin purchases that are supposed to happen off-chain here, how should I put it? Yeah, basically not through MicroStrategy, but actual Bitcoin. There's no proof of that. But now we have the 13F filings. Here, Julian Ferrer posted them. So where do we have it? Here are the 13F links. We can see them very clearly. MicroStrategy, and then we see the position here. Here's the number. And if we add it all up, we get a purchase of 25 million in MicroStrategy. And yeah, that might not seem like a lot yet, but these are just the 13F filings. Whether there's actually more than this is another question entirely, because obviously not everything is made public here. But with the 13F filings, I don't even know why they have to disclose this here. I'm probably not sure why they have to disclose this, but I think in many cases it would be smarter not to make this public. So I'm surprised that it's here. Normally, only large institutions are required to disclose this, but 13F filings. If it's a country, I don't know why we have to make this public here. Feel free to write it in the comments if you know why we or why they have to disclose this here. I'm pretty sure they actually have a lot more Bitcoin than what's being reported. For example, we can see this just came out as well, that the Mubadal Investment Fund, a sovereign wealth fund from Abu Dhabi, increased its position in the BlackRock Bitcoin Spot ETF during the first quarter. That was a big deal back then too, when it was announced that the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund was buying Bitcoin. In a similar way, it could also be that the Sovereign Wealth Fund is buying Bitcoin through MicroStrategy. It's actually possible that if a sovereign wealth fund does this, they might have to report it in the 13F filings, though I'm not sure. They bought 500 million here, so a lot more, and they bought IBIT here, meaning BlackRock ETFs. And I can easily imagine that Saudi Arabia has a mix between MicroStrategy, IBIT, and maybe Bitcoin self-custody. That would probably make sense for a lot of countries. Institutions like Cantor Fitzgerald do the same thing, for example. They have MicroStrategy and also IBIT, but I don't think they have Bitcoin self-custody in this case. But for a country, of course, it makes a lot of sense to hold Bitcoin in self-custody, to be sovereign, to be able to trade, to not be subject to censorship, and to be able to stay active 24/7. You can't trade ETFs and MicroStrategy on the weekends, so to speak, but MicroStrategy is, of course, an additional leverage. That also means, of course, that they are hyper-bullish because MicroStrategy simply means you're getting leveraged exposure to Bitcoin. I mean, now some people will probably say, and I've thought about this too, maybe it's just part of a diversified portfolio strategy, that they're simply buying into a broad market and, as a result, also buying MicroStrategy just like the Swiss National Bank. That's definitely possible, could be the case, but I'm not so sure. What we do know for sure is that they have Bitcoin here. What that means, in my opinion, is more likely that they're taking an aggressive position on Bitcoin here, and that this isn't even their entire position, but just a small part of it. But that's just speculation. What we definitely need to take away as well is that the passive flows into Bitcoin continue to increase. I've always said that even people who don't like Bitcoin will end up coming to Bitcoin, enemies will come to Bitcoin, critics will come to Bitcoin because of things like this. For example, when they buy an S&P 500 or a NASDAQ fund, and maybe in the future MicroStrategy will be listed there. I think they're not listed in the S&P yet, but they are already listed on the NASDAQ. And since we're already talking about central banks, here we have the Russian central bank, which has just recognized Bitcoin as the most valuable asset class. That's really intense. Just take a look at that. That's massive, massive, massive. Now, all of a sudden, the central banks are on the same level we've been on for a long time, and they're saying, hey, we've now reached escalation level. We're now acknowledging that Bitcoin is the best asset class, and just take a look at this. This is also really, really interesting. I also have a chat log here where I'm talking to someone. He even writes here, by the way, what I told you 3 months ago is now official. So you can see that behind the scenes, we've actually known for a while that things like this are happening. We can see here that the draft law for a strategic Bitcoin reserve in Ukraine is reportedly in its final stages. So, final stages, I don't know exactly what that means, final stages, as I told you. So that's really, really intense. And what you need to take away from this, for those who really understand the whole game, is that this is nothing new. Nawal was already talking about this back in 2013. The first nation to print money to buy Bitcoin will be the winner here. Michael Saylor has said it over and over again. I've preached it up and down, I've shown you all the clips and everything, and now we're seeing these allocations happening. Check out this chat history. There were always shadow operations going on in the background. So honestly, people have known about it the whole time. And then it's no surprise that someone like Tom Lee, a Wall Street legend, is suddenly in a super bullish mood. His last price prediction was somewhere around 200,000 for this year. Now check out what his sophisticated price prediction has turned into.
I mean, Bitcoin is a little bit like a Swiss Army knife because it really does meet the fact that it's a risk-on asset, but it's a network value asset. And I think that as more people adopt Bitcoin, it still explains most of the increase in price. And of course, it's a great safe haven asset. I mean, I think for the next 10 years, I think the easiest way to think of Bitcoin is that it should have the same network value as gold. And, gold, if it's a $23-30 trillion asset, that means Bitcoin should be, at least $1 million, $1.5 million per Bitcoin.
Assel makes it very clear that Bitcoin is a safe haven asset. And that's also what I've always been telling you. I keep saying it all the time. Bitcoin's safe haven, risk-off asset, and so on, and so on. But a lot of people out there just don't get it yet. They're busy with something else. They still see Bitcoin as a high-risk asset, which is completely incomprehensible. The characteristics clearly show that Bitcoin is a risk-off asset, and more people are starting to recognize that now. Tom Lee is now the next one in line. Cathie Wood has already said it. BlackRock. Larry Fink has said it. Michael Saylor has said it. And now Tom Lee is saying it too. He says it has to at least catch up to gold. I would even go further and say it has to far surpass gold. Bitcoin is gold on steroids. If Bitcoin catches up to gold, then it still has to double, triple, or even quadruple, because Bitcoin is 3, 4, 5 times better than gold. But with gold, we'd first be looking at, a Bitcoin price of about $1.5 million US dollars. Gold would also keep rising. Maybe by the time they meet, we're looking at 2 million or something like that. But that's what's so crazy about it. A whole lot of people understand what's going on here. A lot of people are still sleeping here. And just check this out. I just got a voice message that sums up exactly what's happening here. We all know what's going on, but the mainstream is asleep.
Yo, Mark, I have to ask you another question. You know what I find so crazy? Whenever I watch your videos, I think about my own circle, or maybe even yours, and how many people still haven't invested in Bitcoin. Or, I mean, in general, either people don't realize how scarce this asset is, or they just don't get it. How some people just.
I have no idea what must happen for all of them to wake up.
Well, there are definitely a ton of banana heads out there who are clearly living in the wrong movie. But hey, all the better for us. That's actually the reason why Bitcoin isn't at 10 million US dollars yet, but is still just kind of hanging around $100,000. And now, check out what Anthony Scaramucci has to say here, why he also believes that Bitcoin absolutely has to catch up to gold. That's the condition.
You just have to ask yourself the following question, and then there's a binary move after you answer the question. Is Bitcoin an asset class? Is it an asset class? If the answer is yes, then I believe, therefore, it should trade to the market capitalization of gold. It represents an asset class. That means that a portfolio consultant will go to a large-scale institutional investor and say, you need to allocate to gold. You need to allocate to Bitcoin. NVIDIA, Amazon, these others are investments. They're stock investments. If Bitcoin is not an asset class and it's a collectible, okay, whatever you want to call it, then where it's priced now is probably reasonably fairly valued, meaning it's going to be in or near the Mag 7 in terms of its market capitalization. And so I've taken the position, rightly or wrongly, and I can back it up, I think, with a lot of color and a lot of commentary, that it is an asset class. And it's very unique in the following respect. It's a global asset. If you look at American companies or the S&P 500, yes, people around the world own them, but they're predominantly owned by Americans. Bitcoin is got amazing distribution in terms of its ownership around the world. So if you say to yourself, if 50 or 60% of the people that currently own Bitcoin believe it's an asset class, will they continue to buy Bitcoin? Will they continue to hold Bitcoin? Will they recommend it as an allocation in portfolios? If that's the case, then $200,000 is too low for Bitcoin.
If that's the case, then so be it. In that scenario, it's just a collectible asset, nothing more. Then 200,000 US dollars is just a complete joke if it's just a collectible. If it's like a Picasso or something, then that's somewhat justified. But if it's an asset class, then it has to surpass gold. Right now, it just kind of trades together with the Magnificent Seven and so on. That's cool too if it's a collectible. But the question is, what does the consensus think? And that's where you have to ask yourself questions now. Will it prevail, like Tom Lee says, who claims it will catch up to gold and be recognized as an asset class? Donald Trump, the USA, Bo Hines, Ken Fitzgerald, BlackRock, all the big players, and now of course Saudi Arabia and whoever else. Does he really believe that most people will eventually come to the conclusion that this is an asset class? If yes, or actually, it doesn't even have to be everyone in the world, it's enough if just the Bitcoin network and a few more people do, then Bitcoin will already catch up to gold. So we don't actually need everyone in the world, we just need a fraction of the people. And if that's the case, then Bitcoin has to catch up to gold, and Bitcoin could even surpass gold. I mean, a lot of people think you have to compare Bitcoin to the real estate market or the online market. Those are the real final bosses here. But let me know in the comments how you see it. I'm definitely hyper bullish. I'll also drop a link to 21 Bitcoin so you can see how easy and safe it is to buy Bitcoin. With the code Bitcoin Hotel, you can get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Guys, check out 21 Bitcoin and I'll see you there. See you then. Peace out.